Hi there, my name is Adele and I'm from Naked Divorce. Today's video I want to talk a little bit about the effects of divorce on children. So a lot of studies show that this can be an incredibly dysregulating time for kids. But a lot of this actually depends on a few factors. So the first thing is that we've got to look at that age that it's actually hitting the children. Also what the nature of the relationship was like prior to the divorce being declared itself. So first, if the children are single kids in the house, they're an only child, they will experience divorce more acutely. If they're also between the ages of 8 and 12, they will experience the divorce more acutely. If there was a very peaceful environment where everybody was keeping up appearances and this was a huge shock event where they weren't expecting it, they will experience it more acutely. And if the parents are massively estranged and hating each other and hating on each other, they will experience the divorce more acutely. So the effects actually vary based on those contributing factors. So some critical things to think about is the age at which you are breaking this to your kids. If they are between 8 and 12, this is going to cause a lot of dysregulation. Largely what we see in this developmental age is that children develop their sense of belonging with themselves and their community and like their place in their family and where they're at that age. They also are developing their work ethic. So this is where we will see problems at school, we will see problems isolating away from their peers, social anxiety developing, or perhaps they're kind of really struggling with one parent in particular and wanting to either isolate themselves from their parent or feeling very dysregulated when they're around their parents and not able to adjust to the change of homes and things like that. One of the things that you can do that is really helpful is to do a personality test on your kid. So Jordan Peterson runs a really great test called Understand Yourself, or understandmyself.com, and on that platform you can do one of the big 5 personality tests. And I really encourage all our parents that come and do our programs to get their kids to this test so that you can actually discover some of the personality traits that are consistent regardless of whether their kid experiences trauma or not. By discovering their personality, you can see if they have trait anxiety or neuroticism. You can see if they have high compassion, which will mean they'll really struggle a bit more emotionally and be perhaps sensitive to what is going on. And it will give you some really good pointers as to some of the warning signs and things you need to look out for. If they're low on industriousness, they're going to possibly be challenged at school and they're really going to struggle with the adjustment of divorce. So get that personality test done so that it can give you some data as to what possible effects would it have on your kids. The next thing is that you've really got to work hard to understand that if things were really still and calm before the divorce actually happened, this is going to hit your kids 10 times worse. So there has to be that really clear explanation with your kids that, look, romantic love is very different to familial love, because also at younger ages kids don't have that distance and that distinction between themselves as an entity and you as an entity. So they think they are somehow at fault or somehow involved or somehow to blame for this thing happening between their parents. So you making that distinction between romantic love sometimes ends, familial love never ends, it will help them distinguish that there are different kinds of love, and that love ending between 2 romantic partners doesn't mean that you're now going to stop loving them. And also making it really clear that it's not their fault, that they are not to blame for what has happened. And to make it really clear and have a really good narrative as to why you're breaking up, like what happened. Like maybe 2 people are just not meshing well together, like two people are just not compatible, and when you find out you're not compatible, actually it's better to be happier over there with somebody else. If you have a very acrimonious relationship, a tumultuous relationship, sometimes divorce can come as a relief for kids and they adjust much better with the parting of the 2 parties. But where we find when there's like calm waters and suddenly this explosion happens, kids really struggle with that adjustment. The way to deal with it is to talk to kids about their feelings. Don't shame them for their anger, their upset, their whatever. Lean in, like, hey, I noticed that you're feeling really upset and down today. Let's have a chat about that. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be upset and down, and I want you to know that you can always come and talk to me. And if they don't want to talk, that's okay, because the questionnaire, the big 5 questionnaire will actually tell you a little bit about why they don't want to talk. You know, maybe they struggle to actually put on loudspeaker what is going on there. The other thing to kind of be aware of is never to use your children as a weapon against your ex, trying to compete with your gifts are better than my gifts, your holidays are better than my holidays. None of this stuff, okay? This hugely impacts the regulation of children following divorce. The other thing is if they feel like they're being used as a go-between, they're being used to either milk information and get information on the other partner or the other parent, or they are, you know, needing to send messages back and forth. Do not ever do that. That you should never burden your kids with that level of responsibility and adult stuff. They don't need to be involved in that. The other thing is to trash talk the other parent and tell them all the terrible things about the other parent. That actually will make them lose respect and affinity towards you. So it's kind of a self-implosion technique. I really don't recommend that. But I think the most chronic thing that I see with parents is when they are not themselves dealing with and healing from their own divorce trauma and using their kids as a mechanism to get love and to get their own self-regulation moderated. So if you're hiding behind your kids and getting absorbed in their lives and almost being overprotective or over-involved, and there isn't that healthy distance between you and your kids, not great, okay? That will lead to a real codependent dynamic. It could even cause something called a trauma bond, and it can really give kids enormous amounts of pressure. It's almost like they've moved from being the child to being your partner. It's very, very inappropriate. So allow them to have that distance and space, and you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put the oxygen mask on anyone else. You need to go get your own help and process what has happened so that you are really able to be there for your kids in the most powerful and awesome way. Try really hard to have a great relationship with your ex. It doesn't matter what has happened at the end of the day, whether they cheated or they did some terrible things. Like, you got to kind of have a child-centered focus at the end of the day, because that's what's important, is their well-being, not your sense of or quest for justice. So whatever you can do to have a great relationship with your ex and have consistency and continuity and have good communication, it'll help with your children's self-regulation if they see that model and they see that people can actually find a way to be amicable. So the other final point would be to plan events like birthdays and Christmas and other seasonal holidays and whatever that's appropriate for you in your life. Do the work to kind of plan those things in advance so that they don't become accidental things that happen or don't happen. Kids need routine, they need structure, they need consistency, they need congruency, and they need to kind of know what's coming up and they need a plan. So the more you can kind of provide that for them, that's really going to help them with their regulation moving forward. So I hope those tips are helpful, and if you have a particular issue with one or more of your children and you want to discuss, feel free to contact us and book a clarity call here at Naked Divorce. Take care.